How many organizations, both together 33 sticks and then earlier in our careers, where working with folks on the technical side, they would not put a developer in front of any kind of like senior director or above.
Yeah, and
Like
it's
a lot.
unfortunate a lot, and it's unfortunate because these people have tremendous value to add and can help educate. But
But they get way
um,
too weedsy.
it's yeah, the communication is not at the right alignment. I shared the story of the first time I brought one of our data scientists to an executive readout when I was client side,
Yeah, and
right?
it did not
Like
go well.
it went horribly. In fact, the CEO pulled me aside and said, "Never bring them again. You can take their inputs, you can take their insights, and then translate it into a more meaningful conversation for us." So, it's not dumbing it down. It's translating it to a level of business, so that we're all on the same. Just think about it as trying to sit down and have a meaningful conversation in two completely different languages where you each may understand a few words in the other language. It's going to be incredibly difficult. So we need to standardize on some kind of language that we're talking about, and there is a very specific language when it comes to business. And um I think a big part of it is lack of training and mentoring. I also think a big part of it is ego, right? In from the more technical side, in that I'm not going to change the way. Like if they don't understand it, that's on them that they're not smart enough to understand. I'm like, wrong approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and then I've been in similar situations where a developer comes in and takes a conversation completely sideways. You're getting and this is not a knock on the developer at all, but it's the working with them on that kind of skill where you have an executive on board with something and then they go into the details which are not necessary for this particular conversation. This particular executive doesn't care.
Yeah,
They want you, and the reason why they don't care is they're looking at you as you figure these out. Why are you bringing them to me? If you're bringing them to me, that means there's a concern, and I need to stop this right now. That's the way I've learned to interpret that. If you're bringing certain details to an executive, they're going to say, "This means it's something I should be concerned of. I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to say no."
right. Yeah, and more empathetic I could not be. I mean, I spent the first 6 years of my professional career as a software engineer, and I think the first few years I had that attitude of, Look, if you don't understand what I'm speaking, that's on you, man. Like you got to get with it and get smarter about this tech stuff." Um, but it was only me that I was hurting, right? Like,
Mhm.
I was the one that couldn't communicate. I was the one that my career was probably being stunted or held back. And again, this shouldn't be an ego thing. This shouldn't be I have to dumb it down for an audience. That's not it at all. It's simply knowing your audience and preparing and presenting in the language that your audience understands and speaks. It is critically important. And again, I'll go back to, we tend to focus so much on the hard skills of what we do, which are very important. But if we don't also focus on the soft skills, all that work in, building our statistical models and creating this really fancy data visualization are lost because we simply are unable to communicate how it works, the value of it to an audience that's not their day to day. And they don't want it to be their day to day. That's why they hired you. But you need to figure out, how do I make this meaningful to my audience? And if you can't do that, then you will ultimately end up as Milton, right? Like keep moving your desk until you're down in the basement with a can of cockroach spray. Unfortunately, like that's the path that many of us in the digital analytics space are headed towards. If we're unable to recognize the importance of the soft skills of what we do and make some fundamental changes to improve that side of what we do. And I don't care if you're an implementer or an architect or an analyst or an optimization strategist, this holds true for all of you, that it is a critical piece to being a linchpin, to steal a word from Seth Godin, within the business. Like if you want to truly be a linchpin within your organization, all the statistical knowledge in the world isn't going to get you there. You have to figure out how to add the soft skills to be part of the boardroom, to have those conversations, not as a lesser, but as an equal to.